It's the time of the year where many gardeners are planning out the growing season, what goes where and when. I know from my past it was hard to find all the information in one place, and it can take hours and hours of research to find some info that might not even be perfect for your zone. In this video, I'm going to try and sort that issue by giving all the info that you need to get going. I'll leave timestamps in the description so you can navigate a bit quicker. Hit that like button for the YouTube algorithm and let's get growing. Let's start with why you might want to start seeds indoors. The most common reason is a short growing season. For me, in the Netherlands, we're with zone 8 here, it would be impossible for me to grow a pepper directly outside. By the time it's mature enough to actually grow some peppers, the temperature drops and the days get shorter. By starting them indoors, I can get a head start and get them done before it's winter. Another example would be tomatoes. Starting these outdoors will take the harvest period into autumn. But because of the rain, there's a big chance of late blight. It actually took down almost all my tomatoes last year, leaving me with little to no harvest. Did this ever happen to you? Let me know in the comments. Now also a good reason to start indoors is the protection of small sprouting plants, like salads and peas. These can be a tasty snack for birds and slugs, but when attacked at this stage, the plant can't recover and it will probably die. Now, what plants should we start indoors? A general rule would be any warm climate plant. Any plant that can't handle cold conditions, let alone freezing temperatures. Like peppers, tomatoes, pumpkins, and eggplants. Does this mean we should start all other plants outside? No. It's good to get a head start on many veggies, but with root vegetables, it's tricky. If you start carrots indoor and transplant them, there's a bigger chance of forking, and also they will probably not grow straight anymore. The same goes for turnips. I've had success with radishes, but generally they do better when sown directly. On the other hand, beetroot works great. There are also quite a few vegetables that don't like to get transplanted, or they grow quickly so they don't really need it. Plants like peas and beans, together with corn and potato, like to grow in their final spot. Now before we get to the list of vegetables, let's look at the last frost date. Something that might be forgotten by excited new gardeners. Here, the last frost date is around the 15th of May. This tells me that I can safely plant plants that can't take frost around that date. Of course, you have to check the weather forecast and make sure that the frost is over. If you want to know your last frost date, a quick Google should do the trick. Once we know the last frost date, we can work our way back to know when to plant our veggies indoor. Now let's look at the list and let me walk you through it. The plants that are on the start indoor section generally take a long time from seed to harvest. They are almost all warm season plants, like peppers and the eggplant. The indoor or outdoor list is filled with colder climate plants. You will have to look at your hardiness zone to see how and when to plant them. According to Wikipedia, a hardiness zone is a geographic area defined to encompass a certain range of climate conditions relevant to plant growth and survival. It's a lot of words, but as an example, a plant may be described as hardy to zone 10. This means the plant can withstand a minimum temperature of -1.1 to 4.4 degrees Celsius. By doing a quick search online, we can find the specific needs for vegetables. Some can tolerate a colder climate better, or can even be frost hardy. By knowing your hardiness zone, you can find the right vegetable for your area. Or you can protect those that need some more warmth with a greenhouse, a fleece, or a cold frame. Since my zone is 8, I know that almost all of these plants will be done on time. But I also know that broccoli and cabbages take a long time to be fully mature. So I like to start these indoors, and this gives me possibilities to grow more vegetables on one spot. As an example, the broccoli can be already harvested in May or June, giving me loads of time to follow them with, let's say, a carrot or a beetroot. If they are marked with a star, this means they will do better when growing directly outside, but when needed, they can be started inside. And the last list is for outdoor starting plants. These are plants that usually do better when sown directly outside. Some people, like myself, do start peas in module trays indoors. But I must say I had a few transplanting shocks stopping their growth. Now that we know which plant to start indoors, let's look at when to start them. Since we're building a big garden this year, I'm trying to maximize our harvest, so let's look at the vegetables that we're gonna grow. Now the best way to know when to plant is by trial and error. There are many variables that might change the result, but today we're gonna look at a good starting point. These can usually be found on the packaging of the seeds. They usually give some indication, sometimes weeks before frost or sowing months, and sometimes with illustrations. Let's first look at the eggplant. Looking at the packaging, we can see that it's suggested to start in about January or April. And I want to give the eggplant plenty of time to grow, so I'm going to start this in the beginning of February. That's roughly 14 weeks before the last frost date. Next up will be the bell pepper, the YOLO Wonder. Here we can see an illustration showing us that it should be sown in March till April indoors, and we want to start them as soon as possible so that we have plenty of time. I'm going to start them the first week of March, so about 10 weeks before the last frost. I've got several tomato plants that will go in, a beef, a pear, and a cherry mixed tomato, and all of them we can start at the end of February, which will be 11 weeks before the last frost date. Now I couldn't find my leeks package, but I know they give an indication of January to March, and I'm going to multi-sow my leeks, and I know that I need to put them out a little bit sooner because they will run out of space in the module tray. So I'll go with the end of March, and that will be about 7 weeks before the last frost date. Courgette or zucchini also can't take the cold, and the package tells me that this has to be planted outside in June. Now, I like to get them indoors a little bit quicker than that, so we're gonna try and get them in about mid-May. That way we can transplant them mid-June because they take about 4 weeks to get ready. To finish off, we could start outside broccoli, but we're gonna do it inside. But because broccoli can withstand temperatures that are below freezing, we can transplant them outside before the last frost date, especially when using some fleece cover. Aiming to get them out at the end of March, it takes about 4 weeks for the broccoli to be ready to go outside, so we can start at the end of February. Now that we know all the dates, we're gonna put it on the calendar. I first wanna mark the 15th of May, which is my last frost date, and then work my way back from there. And from here, we can start counting back. Now I know that about 1 week before the last frost date, around mid-May, we want to plant the zucchini. So over here, we can put in zucchini. From the zucchini, we're just gonna count back. So that's 1, 2 weeks, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. And 7 weeks, we're gonna plant the leeks. Before that, 8, 9, 10 weeks, we were gonna plant our bell peppers. So that's 10, going into 11, and 11 will be the tomatoes and also the broccoli. And the eggplant, bringing us all the way back to the beginning of February, which is roughly 14 weeks. Now that we have the calendar filled out, we have an estimation or a rough ballpark on when we should plant everything. Let's say we can't plant the eggplant on the 6th of February, but we have time on the 7th, of course that's fine as well. Just make sure you stay within that region because there's a lot of variables. Maybe the heat is a little bit less a few days, or you can't get enough light. Anything like that can change it up. So it's not too big of an issue if you can't get them on the right time. As a conclusion, we can see growing indoors depends on 3 things. First off, your last frost date. Secondly, your hardiness zone. And at last, what vegetables you want to grow. Take a good look at the packaging to determine how much time a seed needs to germinate before you can transplant them out. I'll leave a link in the description with a more detailed list of vegetable growing speeds. This will give an indication for how soon you should plant them. My calendar is completely done, so that's the end of the video. If you have any questions, let me know in the comment section and either me or one of the community members will give you an answer. I hope you guys enjoyed watching this video. If you did, consider joining the community by subscribing to the channel. and don't forget to live the farm dream.